Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for today's edition of Arkansas Alive. My guest today is Jerry Cox with Family Council, and you'll want to stay tuned for today's Arkansas Alive because we're going to talk about the upcoming elections. I'll show you how you can get your voter's guide. You can get it online. And tomorrow, voters across Arkansas will be showing up to the polls to determine who will advance to the next round in the 2022 elections. And who better to talk about tomorrow's primaries than Jerry Cox? If you're unsure about who the candidates are, what they stand for, Jerry will share with you and how you can get the information that you need. So stay tuned. Arkansas Live starts right now. All right. Jerry, welcome again to Arkansas Live.
It is always my pleasure. I think you and I have been talking about elections forever.
Yeah.
Since we were each about 12, probably, or something like that. But it's always a pleasure to come and talk about the voter guide and the election. Lots going on.
Well, you're knowledgeable, and I've said this to the viewing audience before, and I've said it to you before, but when we built VTN and we were facing a lot of legal issues, Jerry helped me, guided me through the different committees, I guess you could say.
That's right.
And we were challenged at one committee meeting. One of the gentlemen there didn't like some of the programmers that we were going to have on VTN. But that all turned out good, and I was so grateful you were there with me.
Well, it was my pleasure to help out. And that's what we try to do. We try to help any way we can.
Yeah. Okay, there's a lot to talk about. My messages coming up are going to be on shortages. We've got shortage gas. We've got shortage baby food. We've got shortage, but we have no shortage of candidates running for office. I've never seen so many people stepping up to the plate. I guess it's a good thing.
Well, let me tell you, we've been doing these voter guides since 1990. And I believe this is the largest number of candidates that we've ever had in the primary. Just to give you an example, there are 6 people running for lieutenant governor in the Republican primary. And so lots of choices out there.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see runoffs this time around because if a candidate doesn't get at least 50% of the vote, then you go into a runoff with the top 2 candidates. And I think we're going to see some runoffs this year.
Let's jump real quickly to the voters' guides. Now, you can get a voter's guide. Let's put up some of the contact information, and we'll put it up again at the end of the broadcast. How you can get your copy of Family Council's voter guide. 414 South Pulaski, Suite 2, Little Rock, 72201. There's the phone number. Area 501-375-7000, the website familycouncil.org, and this voter guide is available online. So go to that website and pull up the voter guide. Now, Jerry, I've already read through mine, and I do this every year just like I would read a special edition of the newspaper because it's important that we be informed. And as you already pointed out to me, some of the candidates did not fill out the questionnaire.
That's correct.
Simply because I think you were told they just don't fill out questionnaires. But that's what helps us understand what they believe and what they stand for.
Let me tell you my philosophy on this. First of all, this is probably the only widespread voter guide in Arkansas that's nonpartisan. Yeah. We don't endorse the candidates.
Right.
We don't even tell you who to vote for. What we do is we ask the candidates a series of about 10 questions.
Yeah.
And they tell us whether they support or oppose Roe v. Wade, whether they support or oppose homeschooling, whether they support or oppose critical race theory and the other issues that are out there. And then we print their responses exactly the way they give them to us. So it's an opportunity, really, for them to tell us where they stand.
It's just like you're sitting down with the candidate and asking them questions about where they stand on this and so forth. You're the catalyst that has done this for basically the Christian community. And of course, you can't make a decision based on the political ads that you see on TV because somebody's got to be lying. Somebody's not telling the truth because both sides can't be right, you know.
Well, and that's the frustrating thing about all the noise that's out there. You would think that this candidate is an angel and this one's a devil and back and forth. And what we try to do is cut through a lot of that noise and just tell people where the candidates stand. I look at it like a job interview.
Yeah.
If you or I were running for the Senate or governor or whatever it is, and we would be saying to the people, hey, I want you to hire me by voting for me so that I can serve you as your governor, lieutenant governor, senator, whatever it happens to be. And so I think we as the voters have every right to say, great, I'm glad you want to be my governor or my senator or my representative. May I ask you some questions?
Yeah.
May I interview you to see if I'd like to hire you or not? And that's really the goal of this voter guide, is to provide that.
Well, I think you do a great job. And I think anybody would be served in a positive sense to get this information. Now, let's start off with, I guess, maybe a question some people would have. What are the new voting laws that were passed last year in Arkansas? Are these laws going to be in effect tomorrow when people go and vote? Now, early voting is already over, of course, when they go to vote. Bans on non-voters coming within 100 feet of enforcing matching signatures. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, as far as tomorrow, when you actually go walk in and vote, the main thing you got to remember is bring your ID with you.
Right.
Bring your photo ID with you. And that's not anything out of the ordinary, because think about how many times you have to show your ID to get on an airplane or whatever it is you're doing. You have to show that. So Arkansas, like a lot of states, passed a voter ID law where you have to have a photo ID. If you don't have one, I think you can still vote, but it becomes a contested ballot, and it kind of goes through a process. Best thing to do, just bring your ID with you. You'll be good.
Now, you know, all of this is designed to, I guess, improve voter confidence in our elections, that everything's going to run all right.
Yeah, see, I think anyone who studies history would say there's always been a certain amount of dishonesty in elections. Guess what? Welcome to the human race. There's been a certain amount of dishonesty anywhere that humans go. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, it's just the way it is. But what you want to do is you want to put as many safeguards in there as are reasonable so that people can't cheat. And I think voter ID and some of these other things have been good steps in the right direction so that you don't have people voting that should not be voting.
Now, let's deal with another subject, a very touchy subject. What advice or encouragement would you give to people that are not planning on voting or that don't vote?
Well, I know some people say all the candidates are the same, they're all worthless, or they're all wonderful, or whatever they've decided. And I will tell you, I'm around these candidates a lot, more than most people. They are not all the same. They are a cross-section of who we are as a state, who we are as a community. There are all kinds of people on the ballot. And it's really up to the voter. It behooves them to figure out which one of these or which ones of these reflect my values, what I want, how I would vote if I were there. And so that requires some due diligence on the part of the voter. But if you don't vote, then you have just handed all that over to somebody else to make that choice for you. And, you know, if you want other people to choose your leaders, then I guess go ahead and stay home. If you'd like to choose your leaders, then go vote.
You know, I've heard the figures, but it's really embarrassing, and we're talking basically to a Christian audience here, it's really embarrassing the few number of Christians that actually vote. And yet they complain about all of the ungodliness that's going on, but they don't go to the polls and vote. They're registered to vote, but they don't go.
Well, the other thing, too, is people need to vote wisely.
Yeah.
Some people will walk into the voting booth, I promise you, tomorrow, and they're going to say, well, I like his yard sign.
Yes.
or I like what he said in a speech. And I tell people, I said, the signs don't really tell you anything. And the candidate, you have to look at what they do, not what they say.
That's right.
Because some can sound really, really good. You have to look below that. And this voter guide is not the be-all, end-all for that, but it's a piece of it.
Yeah.
It is a piece of it.
It's a guide. It's exactly what it says it is. I know during any elections, national, state level, city, whatever, I always try to get people, and I did this in the last general election, national election, look at the party platform, and you will see exactly what that individual is committed to. Now,
That's true.
I've gotten criticism from that because we have, and I understand this, and I agree, we have got different party viewers. We've got Democrats, we've got Republicans, independents, we've got libertarians, we've got people from all beliefs and backgrounds. We've got liberal, we've got conservative, etc. And the criticism that I get sometimes, not much, is, thankfully, is, hey, we're out here too, Pastor Caldwell, and we don't appreciate you pushing us to one side or the other. I'm not trying to push anybody or tell anybody how to vote. Never have. I just want you to know what you're doing when you do vote. If you pull that lever or mark that little spot for that particular party platform, or that, and they've already told you what they're going to do.
Let me tell you the cool thing about this voter guide. I had one of the most left-leaning liberal people that I know of call me years ago and say, Jerry, I use your voter guide to figure out who I'm going to vote for. And I said, great, I'm glad, because here's the beauty of this guide. If you're far left, if you're far right, if you're libertarian, wherever you are, you can take this voter guide, and I believe you can figure out which candidate leans your direction by the way they answered it. And that's what we want. We want the people to have good information. Now, you and I hold a Christian worldview. We're not ashamed of that.
Right.
I plan to vote for people that reflect a Christian worldview.
Right.
And but others may not. And that's the beauty of the system that we have. People get to vote for who they want.
Jerry, do you think there are candidates at every level, elections, city, state, federal, national, that will say things to target Christian community? I'm a Christian. I'm pro-life. I'm this. Do you think sometimes they say those things to get your vote, but that's not necessarily really the way they believe or the way they have voted in the past?
I've seen it many times, and what we do is we publish this voter guide that tells you how they say they're going to vote.
Right.
We also publish a report card
That's right.
that tells you how they voted.
That's right.
And if you lay the two side by side, sometimes it's like, boy, that guy was true blue. He did exactly what he said. And you lay it there and look at this other one, and you say, no, they really didn't do what they said they would do.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole other chapter in this discussion about holding elected officials accountable and saying, why didn't you vote the way you said you would?
Yeah. Let me go and share with you how you can get a copy of the Voter's Guide, or how you can contribute, because it costs them money to print these, to put them online, how you can contribute to Family Council. Here it is right here. 414 South Pulaski, Suite 2, Little Rock 72201, area 501-375-7000, and the website is familycouncil.org. Now you can go online, and this voter guide is online. So if you want to go down to their office and pick up some, fine. Now, I think you've already sent bundles of these to churches. I know our church got a bundle, and we had it out in the foyer for people to pick up. So people might want to check their church lobby or the vestibule or find out. You may have some that you can take.
Well, absolutely. And we are practically out of these at the office, I will say that. So if people are thinking about getting one, they need to call first, because we have had huge demand for these this year. In fact, we ordered a second printing, and we have given almost all of those away as well. But it's still online, and you can go to arkansasvoterguide.com and get the very same information there that you would in the printed guide.
And I want to say again, Jerry's already alluded to this, they do not endorse candidates. They do not persuade you or tell you how to vote or who to vote for. They simply give you the information based on the survey that the candidates filled out. So you'll know, okay, so-and-so said they believe this or they believe that. And I guess the number one hot button topic today is still abortion, based on
it is.
The Supreme Court may overturn Roe versus Wade.
It is. When I started in the pro-life movement in 1984, I never imagined that I would hear the words about to overturn Roe versus Wade. Who would have thought that we are maybe on just the edge of seeing that actually happen?
Yeah.
I believe it's going to happen. I believe Roe is going to be overturned. A lot of people think, well, then that means the pro-life fight is over. And no, it just means that every state will get to make its own abortion laws now.
Yeah.
And Arkansas, if our laws that we've already passed, they stand, abortion will be mostly illegal in Arkansas, except to save the life of the mother.
Yeah.
In other places like California, it's probably going to be very legal there, because they vote a different way there. They have a different worldview. And so it'll be interesting to see how all this shakes out. But we should know by the end of June, how this is going to turn out.
Okay. Well, I guess we could address all the things that have already been addressed, women's rights, and then what about the rights of the child? Arkansas Right to Life, their goal is to stand up for the unborn. Who's going to stand? Whether that's a person or not, if you kill that baby in the womb, it's murder, etc. We could go that whole gamut. But I have a question I'd like for us to discuss in the time remaining. Okay, let's say that Roe versus Wade as a national abortion right is overturned. It goes to the states. Arkansas already has a trigger law that will say, abortion is banned. Now, we've killed 63, 65 million babies in the womb just in America. Okay, so there's no more abortion. There's no more killing of babies. There is going to be a lot of babies born into the culture. If you can't abort them, you're going to have to give them birth. Okay, here's the question. What are we going to do with all those children?
Well,
what's going to happen to them?
There's a good answer.
Okay.
There's a real good answer. The state of Arkansas right now has 2 abortion facilities. One is surgical and chemical, and the other one is just chemical abortions. There are only 2. Do you know how many pregnancy resource centers there are in Arkansas dedicated to helping women with unplanned pregnancies? Almost 50. Almost 50. And so what we have to do now is we have to focus on reducing the demand for abortion.
Right.
Because you are exactly right. If we went over there this morning and nailed the door shut to the abortion facility, the demand would still be there.
Yeah.
And many of these girls and women feel like there's no other way to go. They are caught, trapped, hemmed in, whatever, and abortion is the only answer. What we have to do is we have to create a network of support all across the state of Arkansas so that these girls and women know that there are people there who will help them through the pregnancy. They will help them with adoption. They will help them with raising the child, help the woman get a good job, help her know parenting skills, help her learn life skills, how to balance a checkbook, all of those things. There is a tremendous opportunity for the church.
There you go.
To step up.
For the church.
Step up.
Yeah.
It's time. And the state of Arkansas is already stepping up.
Yeah.
They appropriated $1 million just this year to allocate in grants to these pregnancy centers to help them do the good work that they are doing. But imagine if the churches, 5,000 churches, that's how many we have in Arkansas, if they rose up and said, you know what, no girl needs to feel like she has no other choice but to abort a baby. We're going to step up and step in and help out. And that's the opportunity that's going to be there.
So instead of aborting the child can be adopted, the child can be in foster care, the child
can be raised by the parent.
Yeah, and the child can be alive and function and be the person God intended them to be.
Yeah, think about the destiny of all these children and what an amazing impact they can make for the Lord if they're just given a chance to grow up. All we are doing is giving them the same chance that you and I got. They're getting a chance to grow up. And every child, unborn child, deserves that.
I don't know the history of orphanages, but I do know that when I was in college, after I got out of the Navy and I went back to school on my GI Bill, and I was at Little Rock University. Anyway, it's U of A Little Rock now, out on university. And I was a psychology major, and one of the projects that I had to do, it was in child development. And so I chose to go out to an orphanage. I think it was over in North Little Rock. It's run by the Catholics. Of course, many orphanages are. St. Joseph's. And I went out there, and I was assigned to a little girl who was probably 6 years old, I guess. And I did interviews with her. I did interviews with the sisters and blah, blah, blah. Well, it was such a heart-rending. Now, I was not a Christian. I was not even born again. But I had such compassion for this little girl. She was abandoned. And I almost remembered her name, because you got to realize this was 60 years ago. And so I think there was a bond that took place without me even knowing it, because every time I would go out there, she would just run up and grab me. And when my course was over and all that, I didn't go anymore, and she went into kind of a depression.
Oh.
Okay. If an orphanage, who was the minister that had orphanages? Brother Summerall used to tell me about him. He used to raise millions of dollars to raise children. If the orphanages are sanctioned, operated by, staffed by churches, Christians, Christian ministries, Christian organizations, churches, maybe the churches could see a whole new mission field where, okay, the Catholics have been raising kids for generations. How about the Presbyterians, the Baptists, the Assemblies of God, the Adventist? How about if everybody says, okay, a new window of evangelism. We're going to start an orphanage. We're not just going to build them in Africa and India and so forth. We're going to build them right here in Central Arkansas.
Well, and there are so many families out here who want to adopt a child, who are mired in the red tape of trying to get through an adoption. There are things, I believe, that the state of Arkansas can do to facilitate the adoption of these children and placement with families that really want a child. We just need to find a way to facilitate that better. And there are some young women that said, I would keep my baby if I felt like I had the support to raise this child, if I had a good enough job if I had somebody to help me do some daycare, whatever it is they need. And so there are lots of opportunities to come alongside these women and say, you want to keep your baby? We'll help you do it.
Yeah.
We'll help you do that. And that's what these pregnancy centers around the state of Arkansas have been doing for a long time. But all of a sudden now, their role is going to be much, much greater, because if we make abortion mostly illegal, it's time to step up and help out.
Instead of institutional care, it used to be the family.
Mm-hmm.
The family was dead. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand there's a moral issue, there's a guilt, embarrassment. When a young woman finds herself pregnant, she's not married. But once you deal with that moral issue or that guilt complex or that whatever, then, and some of them abort because they can't raise it, or the father of the baby wants them to abort it.
Right.
But now, if you can get them to see this is a life, this is not a choice that you make for your convenience. This is a life that you're going to exterminate here.
Right.
But we've got an answer. We've got a solution.
We do. And see, the state of Arkansas also has safe haven laws, where if a young woman gives birth to a baby and she says, I can't handle this, drop the baby off at a police station, a fire station, a clinic. No questions asked. There's no obligation.
Yeah.
You can surrender that child. And these horrific stories of people throwing newborns in dumpsters
in the trash,
and all that. You don't have to do that. You can drop them off at a place where people will care for them.
I think we've got a topic for another session at another time. I think this is going to be a major. Okay, folks, I want to show you how you can contact Family Council if you have any questions, you'd like to support their work, or you'd like to get a copy of the voter guide. It's online. Here's the information. 414 South Pulaski, Suite 2, Little Rock 72201. Area phone number, area 501-375-7000. And the website is familycouncil.org. So I encourage you to go online and get your copy of the 2022 Voter's Guide and read it and go vote. There's no excuse for you not voting. So we want you to do that. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate you being here again.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me on the program. Yeah.
Thank you. And remember, Jesus is Lord of Arkansas, and wherever you're watching, too.
Send your questions, comments, and testimonies to Happy Caldwell at Post Office Box 26207, Little Rock, Arkansas 72221, or email happycaldwell@vtntv.com. Remember to follow VTN on Facebook at VTN Your Arkansas Christian Connection, and follow Happy Caldwell on Twitter at Happy_Caldwell. VTN is on Roku. Search VTN in the channel store and add us to your lineup. Today's episode is available to watch on demand at VTNTV.com and click Watch. You can also watch VTN via live stream at VTNTV.com.